So, are you ready to turn the page and see what I'm talking about this week? I'm Aaron, and this is Talking Points. So what's up, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Talking Points here on Triforce of Chaos. So for today's episode, I'll be talking to you all about the wonderful world of books. You know, that's... Usually we talk about gaming on this channel or, nerd stuff. Well, books are kind of what I consider nerd stuff as well, I've always enjoyed reading. I mean, I know everybody out there has a favorite book or series of books that they've always read. And, so we'll also talk about the books that inspired, yours truly to read. I know that everybody has a certain book or series of books out there that makes them, read happy or makes them want to go back and read another book that comes from that series. So we'll talk about that. After that, we'll talk about the books that inspire or were inspired by movies. We'll follow that up with those that were inspired by games or inspired a game. And we'll also talk about games with the books inside of them. Games where if you run along and you find a book and it has a little story in it. I've had plenty of those in different games I've played. I'll also show off these bad boys here, which just recently got. I think you'll enjoy those. These are the Vault series books from Star Wars. But we'll get back onto that in a little bit. And finally, we'll read some fanswers, some teamsers, and we'll talk about next week's talking point at the end of the episode. With all that being said, let's get talking. So, anyway, we're talking about the books that really drove us into reading and for instance, pushed me into reading. I started off young with the little golden books. Everybody had the little golden books back in the 90s. They were a wonderful series of books that were, geared towards educating children. I used to have one about dinosaurs that really, I couldn't put the thing down. There's even videos of me, talking in front of the camera just like this right here about that book. Can't find them. Of course, they're all VHS, and most of them were pretty much destroyed through wear and tear and overuse. Yeah, my parents loved to show off videos of me being a typical kid, But anyway, after that, I kind of grew out of that and went into the Goosebumps series of books. Now, if you've never read the Goosebumps series of books, they were fucking amazing. I mean, it was just good thriller books written by R.L. Stine back in the early 90s that were all for children and teenagers. I mean, I got into those things big time. I remember me and Josh back in school were talking about, hey, have you read Night of the Living, I think it was like Night of the Living Lawn Gnomes, or I can't remember any of the names anymore. I'm so terrible with that, I should be shot for that. But, we would talk about which books we'd read. You had the puppet book. I can't remember what the name was, but I think it was Slappy the Puppet. But anyway, after that, some of them moved on. Josh moved on to the Animorphs series. I remember him always talking about Animorphs. I was like, the fuck is an Animorph? I didn't say fuck back then, but, now I do. But anyway, after that, we moved into the Star Wars books. Me and Josh would talk for hours about, just every book out there and what was out there. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the book now that I was wanting to bring up. Damn, I'm terrible at this today. But Shadows of the Empire, that's it, Shadows of the Empire. I remember me and Josh told me about this book and I was like, I've got to find it. Had to go all the way to, because we're near the Charleston area. Had to drive all the way to Charleston just to get this book. So it was, yeah. When I finally got that book, I read it from page to page, cover to cover, till I was just tired of reading every night until I finally, until I couldn't read the book anymore. Once I'd finished the book, I was like, damn, I need to go back and reread that again. It was one of those books that really introduced me into the now considered legends of Star Wars, thanks to Disney. Yeah, fuck you, Disney. Which, we'll talk more about Star Wars in a couple of weeks for Star Wars Day. Not going to go into details about that, but you'll have to stay tuned. Another thing that I got into as I got older in my teenage years is I started reading more of Michael Crichton's stuff. I really enjoyed his work, because of the movies Jurassic Park. A lot of people don't realize that Michael Crichton's books came before those movies. Then there was the Andromeda Strain. Then there was Timeline. I mean, so on and so forth. Congo, Sphere. All of those books really defined sci-fi for me. So I mean, that was awesome to me. And now, as I got older, and my dad sort of introduced me to Dune, couldn't really get the feel for Dune, but I really want to go back and read that stuff now. And he also introduced me to Larry Niven, who was, not in person, but he introduced me to his work. Larry Niven, if you've never read any of his stuff, he came up with a concept for for an artificial satellite that inspired the game Halo, the Niven ring. It's a ring that orbits a star. Now in Halo, the installations themselves are self-contained. They don't orbit a star, or they don't, have a star that's in the middle. But yeah, I mean, these things were, it was an impressive feat at the time. So definitely need to check out all of those if you ever get the chance. Now, after I've already talked about what inspired me to read, I want to talk about the ones that inspired movies or were inspired by movies. So we'll start off with one that was inspired by a movie. That was Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. His movie, he worked alongside scientific genius Arthur C. Clarke. Now, if you've never read any of Clarke's stuff, the man knew his science stuff. He was a genius when it came to space. I mean, and he had studied this stuff nonstop, just over and over. So he invented things like geosynchronous orbit and other things like that through his works. Scientists tried it out, and it worked. So Arthur C. Clarke really understood space travel and all that to the point where he developed a story to go along with 2001: Space Odyssey, which became 2010, and I think 2063, which is the third book in the series, and so on and so forth until 3001, which was the last one in the series. Those books, I read those things thoroughly, and I enjoyed every one of them. I mean, Arthur C. Clarke really made everything sci-fi that there was. I mean, anything sci-fi you could thank him and a few others. His books inspired countless movies after that, and some of his books were inspired by the movies. If you really want to go further back, though, Jules Verne was the author that had it all. The man made books and plays and stuff like that, all based around science fiction. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea basically described submarines. Hundreds of years before the submarine, or at least 50 to 100 years before the submarine even was a thought, Journey to the Center of the Earth kind of gave us an idea of what it would be like to travel to the center of the Earth. And then there was like The Time Traveler, I think was another one of his. But each one of these has all had movies made. Isaac Asimov is another author that we have to thank for books such as I, Robot, Bicentennial Man, Nightfall. Most of those helped explain the laws of robotics, as we know them in science fiction. Asimov's books really pushed a lot of people to make movies. I mean, you've got I, Robot. Not a bad movie. I mean, if you ever watch it, it's really good. Bicentennial Man, the one where the robot becomes human. That's another Asimov production. Nightfall, another movie that made it into being a wonderful series. It was a book first that became a movie. Many of these helped sci-fi fans that loved Asimov's stuff get a grasp on what sci-fi really meant to them. And again, I talked about the works of Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton really took what he wrote to heart. He studied everything. He made concepts like the thing we have in Jurassic Park. Now, mind you, the movie Jurassic Park and the book are very different in many ways. In the book, the guy that forms Jurassic Park, I can't remember his name right now in the movie or in the book, but he's a total tool in the books. Like, he doesn't even care that his grandkids might get eaten by velociraptors. Now, in retrospect, in the movies, he's like, "Kids, I love you. Come give Grandpa a hug." And it's so on and so forth that it becomes... You can see the differences that Hollywood takes with these movies, with these books. but the books give you a great story. Each one of these all has differences compared to their movie counterparts. I mean, you get HAL 9000 in 2001: A Space Odyssey. In the movie, he was created roughly around the year 2000, whereas I think it's in the late 90s that he's created in the books. It's been so long since I've read that stuff. Then you have the fantasy books like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. All of those got made into just powerful movies. And then you've got, the movies that became books. There's not that many out there. I mean, I think there was like Alien, for instance, was a movie first. How many books did that span after that? I mean, it was impressive to see the Alien series get a book line, and comic books. I mean, comic books, can't leave those out of the book conversation because they are technically books. So, it was awesome just seeing all that. But, we also have the Star Wars franchise, for instance. Star Wars, before Disney bought it, had a massive universe that now got construed into being not canon, no longer considered part of that universe, which kind of sucks because Disney took a really good story, really good line of books, books, comic books, everything, and just said, no, fuck it, that's not really part of our brand. Yeah, you fucked us over there, Disney. Fans really had a lot going there. I mean, you could have made Episode 7, which, good movie, not a terrible movie, but you could have made Episode 7 better by following the books. So, that's one way to look at it. So, now we'll move on to where books inspired by gaming or that inspired a game, for instance. You have the Elder Scrolls novels, which came from the Elder Scrolls games. Resident Evil has a series of books, which Josh can tell you. I mean, Josh is like, he had every book, I believe. Every time I talk with him, what are you doing? Oh, reading the latest Resident Evil book. What are you doing? Watching anime and playing video games. Those are my two hobbies, The Halo series of books. I never got to read them, but I always wanted to because, even though I play PlayStation a lot, Halo still is one of my favorite series all time, to play. Just because the storyline is so sci-fi driven, The Mass Effect series of books that came out for Mass Effect games. I've never read much of them, but I heard there were a lot of books that came out. There were, not to mention, not just video games, but you also had books that were built around Magic the Gathering, D&D, and other tabletop RPGs, as well as, books centered around storytelling and LARPs, or not LARPs, but GURPS and all that stuff like that. Ringworld actually had a game built around the book series. It was a tabletop RPG that came out for Ringworld, for the Children of Ringworld series. There was also the old PC game that introduced me to that book series. My dad introduced me to Ringworld, but at the same time, he introduced it to me in a game form because the game was a storytelling for it. And then you've also got the Lovecraft mythos, which is Cthulhu, like, my buddy Cthulhu here. Or, any of those books that dealt with the elder gods. So they're introduced into D&D at some point in time. They're introduced into other games. They even have games based around it. Like there's a simple game made by Steve Jackson Games called Cthulhu Dice. It basically follows kind of what Cthulhu would do to people and take their sanity. So it's funny how books inspire so much more. I mean, you can tell that D&D was somewhat inspired by fantasy books of the day and fantasy comics and all that. You can tell that any RPG really is inspired by the fantasy books of its time. I mean, we get that experience through books first, and then the next generation gets it through videos, and the next generation gets it through gaming, and so on and so forth until it's cyclical. So then the gaming then becomes a book, which makes it into a movie, which makes it back into a game. It's amazing just how much it changes the world. So you know, with that being said, now that we've talked about gaming and books related to gaming, there's also a funny little fact about some video games. Some video games actually have full books that you can sit there and spend like 20 or so minutes reading. And by full books, I mean, you know, not just a one little page that pops up that says, hey, this might be a hint for you. No, there are actually stories in these books. Playing an Elder Scrolls game will show you all of that. I mean, when I played Skyrim, I'd sit there and read some of these funny books that had, like the Lusty Argonian Maid series and all that. It's funny. I mean, and then you have the books that tell you all about the background, so that, you know, if you missed Game 1, Game 2, Game 3 of, like, the Elder Scrolls series, so if you missed the first Elder Scrolls, the second one, Morrowind, or Oblivion, you get most of that story in a book in the game. They also tell you about how the world formed, you know, how Daedra and Aedra are your demons and gods, and how, you know, where you can find, what are the ingredients for a potion, what are the, you know, what this spell can do, so on and so forth. And I know Fallout has its series of comics on there that you can pick up and plug into your Pip-Boy. Of course, the comics come on a chip, they're not really a book, but it's still pretty funny. And, you know, there are other games out there that do this. So, I mean, it's interesting to see them introduce reading into the game itself. So, yeah. But now, on a further note, I do want to show off some interesting collector's edition books, which are these Star Wars handbooks here. So with that, I'll go ahead and start opening up some of these boxes that you've been dying to probably look into. So yeah, these are the awesome vaults that I've just gotten. I want to open these up and show them to you. So first off, we'll start off with the Imperial Handbook. So it's easy to get out of the box immediately. I've already gone through and checked out some of this stuff. Got to be real careful because there are buttons that if I press, it will send it opening. So take that out. Set this box off to the side. Push the button on the side there. And let's see if I can show you that. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to move Cthulhu and the book over here for right now. So you take the book out. That's the book, the Imperial Handbook. Comes with this awesome little pen for commanders. Now, it's got all kinds of different things like, you know, a certificate and a few other pictures, paintings, posters. There's all kinds of goodies in there. I mean, it's got detailed, it's even got little inscriptions on the side there. You really probably can't see that, but, you know, it's got detailed pictures and stuff. Tells you about each character, you know, each type of clone and what, or trooper and what they do for the Empire. And then when you're done with it, you just close it back in place and hope that it doesn't reactivate. So I'm going to set that off over to here now. Now this one, the Book of the Sith, is a pain in the ass to get out of the box. Like I said, I went ahead and opened up the box before. So to make this a little bit easier, I'm just going to take the Sith vault out of the box and try not to activate it, because that would be a pain in the ass again. So yeah. Put this box down here, and you might actually get to see these on set with the for another Star Wars episode eventually. But here's the cool thing about this one. Let's move my handy dandy old cell phone out of the way, because I'm actually planning on getting a new phone soon. So we'll open up the vault. That to me is the coolest thing right there. The vault slides out with this awesome book, which is the Book of the Sith. Again, Book of the Sith. Comes with a Sith compass, which there's the detail on that. And another cool thing it comes with, if I can get it out of the vault. It's really hard to get out of the vault, you know, because it's wedged in there. But anyway, I'll just show it to you. If you can see it right there, it's basically a red lightsaber crystal. There we go. Red saber crystal. And then it goes back into the vault in a kind of peculiar way. so as to not be loose and fall and disappear into the void of the book. Now, whenever you're ready to seal it back up, you just push the button and it takes it back into place. And the tablecloth is deciding to move around everywhere. And then the vault seals shut and turns off. So yeah, next one is the Jedi Path. Comes in this handy box. This is a newer version of the Jedi Path, so it gives you the Star Wars Legends look to it, rather than saying like some of these books actually have like the traditional look without saying Legends on them. That's thanks to Disney now buying it out. That a lot of these books that came out became known as Legend books. Again, not a big fan of that after the fact that, you know, Star Wars itself was such a popular series. So yeah, so pull the box out. It's inside of another box. This one I didn't open up too much, so it's kind of there. Now, this is the vault the way it looks before you open it. Let me get the boxes out of the way here now, because I don't need these anymore. I fucking hate cardboard for that reason right there. But, you know, there it is. You push the button here at the bottom. The vault opens up. Book comes out. And this is the inside of the vault. So pretty much there's nothing there. You do get some maps. A map of the Jedi Temple. And I guess this is a certificate of... Oh, an instructional guide to how to build a lightsaber in galactic speak. There's also a medallion for, you know, the Jedi Order. A patch for learning how to fly your starfighter. You know, if you flew your starfighter. There's also a braid in here, a Jedi braid in here somewhere. It's very hard to get to. Oh, there it is. Of course, you know, if you were a Padawan, your Padawan braid, you got cut off. So, anyway, whenever you're ready, you just push the book back into place and seal the vault. So, the final one I've got here, which is my personal favorite, is the Bounty Hunter Code, which was written from the files of Boba Fett, according to the author. It actually has one of the more cooler boxes on the inside, as you can see. Pop that open, and this vault, it's wedged in this plastic. That was another thing, is this one actually comes with a little plastic card. Now, when I first got this thing, I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? Because, I mean, there was no idea as to what I do. But there it is. It's got the Mythosaur skull on it. Of course, me being a big Boba Fett fan. Now, the only reason I haven't really discarded, that I'm not going to discard this box, is because it's, like I said, it's a lot more artsy than the original one. The original one had, you know, all the originals had crappy boxes, but what you do is you press, there's two buttons here. You press both of them. As you can see, this little hatch here starts to open slowly. Okay, it's already opened. So now you take your card that it came with, slide it into this. It didn't go. Did it go all the way? No, it did. Yeah, it did. Slide it into there. And the vault, you gotta sometimes pry it open a little bit. Give it a little coaxing. Again. Now inside of here, as you can see, is the Bounty Hunter's Code from the files of Boba Fett. You also get a book by Bosk's father Kratos called Making a Killing. Gives you some details, as you know, basically it has some things written by Boba inside of it. This one has has like posters for Han Solo with a small reward on it for Chewie. You get you get a lot of cool little things. You get the Bureau of Ships and Services. Gives you a detailed a detailed license for the Slave One. You also get, you know, a good detail of the Death Watch, who were part of the Mandalorian group. And then it also gives you kind of a side story for the Mandalores as well. Gives you Mandalorian armor, how it's made, how it's pronounced in their language. And you also get this cool little Camino poison dart, which is a pain to get out, but easy to put back in. The Camino poison dart. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, and you know, when you're done with this and you want to hide your readings because you're a bounty hunter on the go, you just pack everything back in. Close that. Seal it shut. And your card should always stay comfortably hidden in the bottom. Now, I mean, they go to great detail to make these vaults, and I thought these were all pretty cool. So it was pretty cool to find these things for a reasonable price on Amazon, which you can find them there, or you know, any of your book retailers. So yeah, you want to go check those out. So anyway, yeah, those were all the awesome vaults that I'd gotten. I really love the Star Wars handbooks. They're pretty awesome. They give you that kind of feel of being a part of that universe, even though, I mean, like, you get the Jedi handbook, the Sith handbook, all of those that I just showed you. Check them out if you ever get a chance. You can even get the books, you know, like here. These are the Sith and Jedi books. I've got Cthulhu sitting on them. Kind of funny. So yeah, let's move on to last week's talking point. Last week I asked you, the viewers, what was your favorite book or series? First off, before we get to answering that, I want to thank Grumpy PCer for the comment saying that he liked the vid. Thanks, Grumpy PCer. I actually checked out a few of your videos while I was, you know, sitting around the house Sunday. And you really have some awesome stuff, man. You know, Josh talked about you a little bit, and I've been meaning to... I actually haven't had time to sit down and actually watch any videos. But if you ever get a chance, check out his videos. The guy's pretty fucking funny in my opinion, and he also has a good time playing. From what I watched him playing Star Trek Online, so, you know, hats off to you, man. We enjoy your videos. You know, last week okay, now getting on to the fancers, now that I've gave my one shout out for a fellow YouTuber, is last week we have Katie, who writes, I'd say I thoroughly enjoyed the House of the Night series. Never read that series, Katie. You may have to explain it to me if you ever get a chance to talk with me, to tell me what it's really like. I'd like to actually hear what you can tell me about it. Maybe I might actually pick it up. Omar says, and Omar wrote us a book. Thank you, Omar. You're awesome, dude. Can't wait to have you back on the show again, man. We had a great time. But anyway, Omar says, I'm a little old school, so I think I'm going to go with my obvious choice of Anne Rice's Lestat series, which is Queen of the Damned, you know, Interview with a Vampire, all of that. Anne Rice is one of those writers where you either love her or you don't have a bloody clue where she's going with the story. She's a bit long-winded at times, to the point where it takes her 3 pages to describe a teacup sitting on the table, also known as the Dragon Ball Z syndrome.
5 minutes. That's how long you have. It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G. Snoop Dogg. You know I'm mobbing with the D.R.E.
But The Vampire Lestat is definitely a definitive favorite in my library. Omar, I've actually never had the chance to read. I saw the movies based on it. Again, movie based on a book. Not as good as the book sometimes equal to the book. They seem like they'd be an interesting book, but I just... the way you're describing it, I can't sit down and read someone's books when they start saying, well, the teacup had beautiful paintings on the side and an etched glass rim. Yeah, that doesn't appeal to me, but anyway, glad to hear you like it though, man. Yeah, you know, it's a book series that seriously made some great movies. So, yeah. Valentine writes, Infernal Device series, which is the Mortal Instruments series, or Infernal Devices series, Mortal Instruments series. I totally screwed that up there, but that's okay. And, of course, Harry Potter. So, yeah, I've actually read a few parts of the Harry Potter books. My wife, Jen, she's big on the Harry Potter series. I know a few other fans on here who gave us fanswers are big Harry Potter fans. I've had a lot of friends tell me about Infernal Devices and Mortal Instruments, so yeah, I've never really read them, but I've heard they're awesome series. You know, I stick with more of my sci-fi approach. Some people say Twilight, and I say, no, vampires shouldn't sparkle. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the next fancer, who is Brandy, who writes, I could never answer this. Guess I'll go with Harry Potter. Well, you answered it. But, you know, I understand. You have a lot of books that you love there, Brandy. Which, you know, hey, thanks for answering. This is your first time answering a talking point. So, want to give you a shout out there for jumping in and trying this out. Like I said, I've never read the Harry Potter series. Well, I read bits and pieces. I never really got into it, though, because, again, wizards, magic. The only time I should see that's when Gandalf's slaying the Balrog for me. But, you know, hey, to each his own. Thanks for the answer. Emily writes, Harry Potter for the win. Thank you, Emily. You got excited there. I tried to put the excitement in there. Jen writes, a book. I'm sorry, I had to do that, Jen. You and Omar seem to write books every time y'all answer, which is, you know, I'm not complaining. At least y'all are answering, so hey, thank you. Either any book by Tamora Pierce. I don't know how you say that name. It's one of those weird first names. She was a major inspiration growing up. Or his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, or the Kingdom Keeper series by Ridley Pearson are my favorites. Yeah, the pollen is strong in this one. There's also the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, which I have enjoyed quite a bit as well. Yeah, I enjoy the shows for Game of Thrones, you know. Yes, that's where that comes from. I know that's where it comes from. But I don't know if I can take George R.R. Martin's style of writing a, you know, tome rather than a book. She also says, I also enjoyed Harry Potter and every other book that I've ever read for the fun of it. My favorite school-assigned books by far were a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, of course. And I also enjoyed Gone with the Wind, but I'll give pretty much anything a try in the fantasy, sci-fi, or young adult categories. So that was a good long answer there, Jen. Will writes, I don't really have a favorite series, for I have read many things that I enjoy and pretty much equally. Thanks, Will. Yeah, he likes all books. So, hats off to you, Will. Thank you for the fancer. For our teamsters, we have Misty, who writes any Nora Roberts trilogy, and Jane Austen's Persuasion and Pride and Prejudice. You forgot to add zombies in there, Misty. It's not Pride and Prejudice, it's Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. No, I'm joking. I know what I said there. Yeah, it was a joke. I know she's going to give me hell about that. That's okay. But anyway, Josh writes, my teamster is the Halo novels, Resident Evil novels, and the Scott Pilgrim series. Like I said, I've never got to read any of the books from those. I did see some of the Scott Pilgrim stuff, and I actually watched the movie based on it. So, you know, Josh could tell me pretty much when we'd watch the movie together, nah, that's not how it happened in the book. No, that's close. That's kind of close to how it happened in the book. Yeah, that's exactly how it happened in the book. No, that character had this color hair. No, that character had that color hair. You know, Josh, I enjoy hearing you talk about these kind of things like this. It's always kind of funny to see you get mad when something happens like that. So, anyway, that's it for all the answers for last week's talking point. This week we want to know, what is your favorite anime? I know I've been skirting this one for a while, and I've been wanting to ask this one, but figured since we were a gaming channel, I wasn't going to touch it. Now that I'm kind of saying that this show itself is an all-purpose show, and I've got anime stuff on the back here as well, I think. Like, I guess. I don't know. Maybe. Anyway, for me, I have to say that the Gundam series, Cowboy Bebop, and Crayon Shin-Chan. Yeah, I like Shin-Chan. He makes me giggle. It's just so funny watching that show. Were a few of my favorites. I have a lot more to go with. I mean, Gundam really got me into anime. My sister was big in Sailor Moon. I know I have friends that were Sailor Mooners. Sailor Moon heads, Mooners. That's funny. But, anyway, I mean, I kind of like DBZ as well. It's not one of my all-time go-tos, but, you know, it's... Go-to, Goku. Yeah, sorry, ADD kicked in again. But anyway, you know, I like it, but I just can't get into 20 episodes of Screaming. What's your favorite? You can answer below, or you can go to the Facebook, Twitter, and that's about it, because our website's still down for maintenance, because we're working on trying to get the forums readjusted and all that. You know, I'm not going into full details on that. We're basically trying to develop a better forum so we can answer for you, the fans. Anyway, if you want to let us know, just do what I said before with those three, and you know, leave us a comment. We'll give you a shout out if you left us a good comment. Also, make sure you like and subscribe, because I told you to comment down there earlier. You can comment as well what you thought about today's video. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, which that's where I told you to go leave a comment or a fancer for our talking point. Check out our new and improved merch shop. We have some awesome shirts on there. Trying to come up with a new design now. If I can get it done in time, I'll send it to Josh, see what he says. But anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, keep talking.
Hey, guys. Click that chopper up there to subscribe real quick. Quick, before I die. Do it, do it, do it, please. Do it. Come on. Click it, click it, click it.
Click my dead corpse to watch another video.